Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. If you're anything like me, you're always searching for those rare stories that feel both intellectually sharp and deeply human. Films that capture the messy, rhythmic chaos of life and relationships. Today we're diving into a project that fits that description perfectly. The new romantic dramedy, Fantasy Life. Fresh off a triumphant run at the South by South Film Festival, where it took the Audience Award and Special Jury Award for its star, Amanda Peet. Fantasy Life is a smart, New York-centric story, written and directed by its lead, Matthew Shear. The film follows Sam Stein, played by Shear, a former paralegal who, after a panic attack, finds himself babysitting for his own psychiatrist. What follows is a summer on Martha's Vineyard, involving a stalled actor played Peet, her rock-bassist husband played by Alessandro Nivola, a house full of grandparents, and the delicate shared history of mental illness. It features an incredible ensemble cast including legends like Judd Hirsch, Balaban, and Holland Taylor. Joining me today is the multi-hyphenate behind the film, Matthew Shear, to talk about the transition from acting to the director's chair and the inspiration behind this smart New York rom-com. Because there was so much to dig into regarding the writing process and this stellar cast, we have the entire conversation for you today presented in two parts. Fantasy Life opens in New York on March 27th, with a national-wide theatrical release on April 3rd. Let's get into my interview with Matthew Shear. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Hey, Matthew. How are you today?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
I'm so good. So good. Thank you for taking time out of your afternoon to do this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I had a chance to watch the film last night, and I'm not sure if you ever have this experience where, while the overarching experience is not something you directly relate to, there's these little details in it that feel so familiar that it just speaks to you. Because to me, the truth comes in little details, not in the big, grand details of it. And for this, Battlestar Galactica personally helped me get through a breakup. And when me and my wife first got together, that's when I discovered the magnetic fields. And so to see a film kind of mirrored within those two things and have it bookended almost by those two experiences of depression and sadness and kind of coming to the other side of it was pretty remarkable. So I'm wondering, did Battlestar Galactica help you get through a depression at some point in your life?
Yeah, it did. It was like, it was just a really, it's like when you're depressed, it's sort of like hard to get into things, hard to focus on music or, things that you usually like. And it's like such a gift when something can truly draw you in. And that was Battlestar for me when I was like, I don't know, like 23 or something.
That is it is one of those things that I can't go back and revisit it because of a lot of those feelings that are associated with it at that time. And art has that really interesting effect on me. Like all the films that I have behind me, the books that you have behind you, they are not just the art themselves or the work themselves, but they're a link to my memories. And while they're all somebody else's story, I feel deeply connected to every one of them in my own way, where it's hard for me not to separate myself from the experience of the first time I interacted with that art, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I can completely relate to that. Yeah. There are things like I totally avoid because of their associations, even though they were like favorite movies or whatever.
Absolutely. And that's what I loved about your film, though, because it deals with sort of that depression in a way that anyone that has experienced it or been around somebody who has experienced it, it's not beat over the head in your film, but you see the inability to get out of bed touched in a way, but it's not something that you drill down on and spend 20 minutes about that moment. You see it and you move through things very quickly, which in a way it allows the viewer to see the familiar, but not to beat them over the head with it. Was that part of the design of the film?
Yeah, in a way it was. I think I wanted to try and create a rounded picture of these characters and how they like give a good hit of their inner experience, but also like the context in which they were living, who they're living with, and just the some of the like comic scenarios let the characters, especially my character Sam, like, kind of they kind of knock him out of his, sort of what's the word? It's coming, ruminating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and that's what we all need is to have that sort of that shock to the system that pulls
Yes.
you out of it. And so this experience that he goes through is really the first start of healing for him, I think, because he had
I think
obviously
so
was in
too.
something. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when that's what I loved, and I don't want to give anything away about the ending of the film, but I think it's an honest ending that feels far closer to real life than what I normally see in a film. And it's not sad. I think it's a very hopeful ending. And a lot of films completely fuck up that idea where they put the wrong pieces together and they slap two pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together that never belonged together. They were just, they helped each other kind of form their own puzzles instead of being directly linked together. Kind of
Yeah.
taking the metaphor too far, but
No, 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 no. I think that that's well said, and I liked that approach throughout the storytelling. Like doing my best to um, deal with a given issue or experience from my life, like depression or something,
sure.
and but not force it into you know a really heavy-handed picture. Like I try to, sort of give it a, a humor and and nuance to sort of embed it in life in a way that was more believable.
Well, the first therapy scene is one of the funniest depictions of an OCD moment that having a son that has intrusive thoughts that has gone through that, and we've talked about it with this therapist, but it's something that there is that humor in those moments. And I think that oftentimes films, when they handle these moments and these things, they forget that it is funny. And
Yeah.
it feels disingenuous when somebody's tackling a subject like that and they don't put humor in it, because you do have moments where things are just absolutely hilarious when you're even in the darkest of times.
Yes, yes, and I think it's like useful to laugh
Mm-hmm.
and have a somewhat even if it's a little bit demented, like a playful um like perspective on how sort of entrenched and difficult our mental experience can be.
Absolutely. And um, what was it like casting the film? Because this is something that really, at the end of the day, if you don't have the chemistry between you and whoever you have playing the actress here, if that doesn't work, your film doesn't work at all. And I think that Amanda Peet gives a wonderful performance, but a lot of that does go to you give each other wonderful performances. That the connection between the two of you is what really makes the film work for me.
Well, thank you for saying that. Amanda was, the person that came up in our initial casting conversations. She was the actor that like everybody thought was perfect, and it just like fit so well. Amanda's range, her ability to kind of be goofy and silly, and but also so sort of real and nuanced. It just was like a great fit for the character, and like it was cross your fingers, like this would be the movie if she would do it, and she, we somehow got it to her like through someone's assistant, like it was like a Hollywood
Yeah.
uh kerfuffle of like, okay, we got to get it to Amanda Peet. She got it. She read it quickly. She thought it was intriguing. We heard and wanted to chat. And so that was like the beginning of my relationship with her, was this first conversation. And she just got the script and she had really smart ideas of like how to maybe sharpen some things, and she wanted to add some pieces of her experience into it. And that was the sort of like way in which we started to communicate. And by the time we were shooting, we really felt comfortable with each other. And, she's just the kind of person, you maybe assume this, that she just like speaks her mind immediately. She just kind of can't lie. And so you just get, what you're getting with Amanda. And so like the performances, I think, were a reflection of our ability to kind of just be open and, exploratory with each other.
Absolutely. And I think that and I know we're almost at time, but there was one specific moment that really, to me, encapsulated the entire film in a very subtle way, where you're recording her performance when she's, self-taping for this audition. And we hear the horrible dialogue, but it's being delivered really well. And then it's almost like we shift perspectives, though, when we start to see her through your eyes, and the performance changes, and it just the volume pulls down a little bit and the world disappears, and you just see it through your eyes in that moment. And you start to see the way that you see her, and that she's killing that performance in that moment. But it's also the way that you're giving this silent support to her in that moment that I really think, just to me, you could almost just say, this is the moment, this is the short film version of it, where you get everything that the movie's about in this one scene, I think.
Wow, that's such a lovely description of that scene. I've never really thought of it like that. But I think you're right. It is kind of a perspective shift, and you kind of get to see him appreciate her as an actor and as a person, but like, like beyond the kind of garbage that she has to read. Certainly not Battlestar Galactica. I like that. Thank you.
No, thank you. This was one of those rare films that when I'm 49 years old, I have 2 kids that are on spring break right now. Time is limited, and I tend to schedule things where it's like, okay, I'm going to watch 20 minutes of this right now, then I'm going to go take care of some stuff and come back and I'll finish it up later, which is, I know it's disrespectful and I should not watch films that way, but that's the way it happens.
I got 2 kids too. I'm with you.
But I stopped, and when I started, and I just had to go through the whole thing, and it's such a wonderful film, and it was the little bit of a palate cleanser that I needed right now. So thank you for a little bit of hopefulness and warmth that this film gave me.
Chris, thank you so much for saying that, and I'm so touched that you did have that experience where you wanted to watch the whole film. That's that's a real compliment, so thank you.
No, and it coming from the point of view of just a greedy American consumer, I want more. So I'm hoping there's another one coming down the pike soon. So
yes. So let's hope.
Well, thank you, Matthew, because this is this is the kind of adult film that I think we need more of. So thank you for making the kind of film that made me fall in love with movies in the first place. So
thank you,
and thanks for taking time out of your afternoon.
Appreciate it. I really appreciate that, and this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man. Congratulations. And
thank you.
Thank you, Lily, for setting this up. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, take care.
Yeah, take care.
All right, bye-bye. This is unusual. It's every once in a while, I will have a conversation with somebody, and it's a short one like we had where it's 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, I realized I was just enjoying the conversation and didn't talk about anything that I wanted to talk about, any of the specifics. And so then It's rare that afterwards, within a day, somebody reaches out saying, hey, do you want to talk to this person? It's like, actually, I really do. So thank you for doing this again.
My pleasure.
I appreciate that you met once and still wanted to do this again. So
that was a great conversation.
Well, first thing I wanted to talk about, just kind of continuing it, was the aspect ratio that you shot the film in. I think you see a lot of people using 4:3:5. You see people going scope for things, but 1:6:6 isn't something you see very often. Could you talk a little bit about using that, because I have two reference points for it. When I think of that, I either think of Clockwork Orange or Autumn Sonata. And so
Oh,
I think that,
interesting. Yes, yes, yeah,
so Autumn Sonata makes more sense with the Bergman and sort of the
yeah,
family dissolving, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's funny. I didn't have. It was my idea, and trying to think. It was like maybe my second meeting with my DP, and I don't think we had even like officially like teamed up yet. It was still like dating.
Yeah.
And I I had gotten into the habit of before the movie of like watching movies and then taking like photos of like pausing the movie at moments and like taking a photo of, like whatever for essentially like a still
Yeah.
of the film, to think about how I might want to cover fantasy life and like, oh, that's really interesting. And one of the films that I watched, well, I have two films, and they're like totally so different from fantasy life. But one was a Bergman movie,
Okay.
Cries and Whispers,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and the other one was a Abbas Kiarostami movie, Taste of Cherry.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen that? Oh, it's very good. It's very good. Very, I mean, beautiful and sad. Um, and both of them were in 166. And I don't know, I just showed Connor those pictures on my phone. I was like, I just think this is right. And he was like, yep. And that was
That was
it.
it.
I mean, that was just like that was it. Um, we both recognized that this aspect ratio would, I don't, it just sort of proved it kind of like ended up being useful. Because we don't have like a ton of close-ups
Mm-hmm.
in film, but they're kind of like medium close-ups and full shots that are given more uh kind of, they're like, to use this sort of coarse word, they're
Sure.
like kind of punched in, like
Yeah.
you're sort of like, you get a more walled in version of the image. So it just kind of has like a focused and composed quality.
I agree. And
And
you
it,
can
yeah,
do interesting things with blocking in it, that I think that
yes,
if you're
yes, yeah,
going with a fully square, like Academy ratio for it, that it's you, there's a time and a place for that, but it becomes almost so claustrophobic that your depth of field is really limited in that. So I think that when you're
yeah,
doing this with a lot of, think about like the bookstore sequence, that moment that you have in there, that really works in that, because you're able to have people that are in different parts of the frame, but they are taller in a way, and it just
yes,
gives it
yes,
almost
good.
an unreal feel to it. It's really good for
That's
that.
that's very true. But it sometimes was, um in the bookstore, and there may be other reasons for this than the aspect ratio, but like, part of it was like, I mean, not the production designer's fault at all. It was just like what the bookstore looked like.
Sure.
But we were gonna try and live in a wide, in that scene. Because I just sort of thought like, oh, it might give more physical comedy to it. Like that could be kind of the physical, picture of him in relation to the woman.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. It like we essentially cut every, I don't think we used this particular wide. We used one other from a different angle, but like this wide, we had it a bunch in a, initial cut, but we just ended up getting rid of it completely because didn't have that quality you're talking about. It was not like it wasn't dynamic, and the scene, like it wasn't sort of moving in the way that it needed to kind of like have rhythm.
That makes sense. But then something
Yeah.
like the couch scene where Amanda Peet puts her foot on you, that is something that you're able to have you on opposite sides of the frame, but you're still close together.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, which I really love those kind of moments, because it's something that, and I love that we're at a point now where there's been this moment in time that we're in right now where kind of movie stars, that role into the public is changing a little bit, and something where directors are becoming the voices of films in a lot of ways now. And so people are getting far more technical in their conversations. And so to hear somebody like Ryan Coogler geek out over aspect ratios for long periods of time, and people are listening to that and learning about that and interested in why, it's like, oh, we can finally have these conversations to the general public, and they have a basis of understanding for that now, which that used to be that was a film school conversation. That was something that you would just have in a cinematographer magazine. That wouldn't be a normal, typical conversation. But I think that you can have those conversations now, which is great.
Totally. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to have this conversation, really like 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, in the sense that I did have to sort of like crash course, like, because I didn't go to film school, and I'd been on set a lot, and I had a good,
right,
a pretty good like feeling for the language, and like swinging the lens, and like check the gate, like all that stuff. But I didn't really know, like, oh, this is what is going to change when you swing the lens, and so a lot of that was like learning, in the moment a lot, like with Connor, just sort of having him be, sort of thoughtful with me and explaining. He had a very easy manner and was never talked down to me. And like, I really did start to pick it up. And then I was like, I think we should use the 50, like, like I sort of like got confident. But one thing I'll say, just in relation to the language of film sort of becoming, less sort of specialized.
Right.
I learned a lot about how I wanted to approach fantasy life from the Roger Deakins podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I mean, when he first, he and James first started that, they were like, it was like almost sort of like cinematography night school. Like they would be like, we're going to do an episode on practical lighting. We're going to do an episode on lenses. We're going to do an episode on, and it was just like Roger Deakins waxing about his preferences, and then naturally it became conversations with people.
And it's something that I think that level of insight from he's a living master. He's one of the best cinematographers of all time. And the fact that he's still around in this time, still doing incredibly vital work, and that he has opened himself up in that way is just an incredible resource to people to be able to listen to that and hear. And for people like yourself that you're thinking about making your first time feature, you can go and learn. You could go back and find all the references to Raising Arizona and how are they pulling this off, and or I'm sorry, not Raising Arizona, because that's Sonnenfeld on that one. I think,
was
right?
yeah,
I think that's actually Sonnenfeld. Who was that one?
Wait, you mean the Coen Brothers one?
Yeah, I think that Sonnenfeld shot that one, didn't he? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Was that Deakins? I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Okay, either way, but the point is moot. It's that
I know he shot Hudsucker Proxy, and like that was like a really tough experience, or like there's some I feel like he brings it up a lot, that it was like a huge flop, and
it's such a great film, and I think it's so difficult to divorce yourself from the experience of making a film and how it was received in the world to what the film actually is,
especially for the filmmakers.
But it's such a wonderful film, and something that that is worth revisiting. I just rewatched it less than a year ago. It's an incredible movie. Watched it with my 10-year-old, and he really loved it.
Oh, wow. That's a cool 10-year-old.
Well, it's the things you choose to expose kids to. You can, if you show them, Chaplin films, and you show them, you want them to get into genre films, and you show them old movies first before you show them something that's brand new, they start to appreciate things a little bit more. And so, and your film, though, is something that feels like an extension of some of the work that you've been involved in. It feels like not only a callback to, like those Bergman films in a way that you were clearly, I think, inspired by to some degree, the fact that you're looking at that and that's a photo, but just the feeling of those films. But then, something like Frances Ha, that's a very important movie to me. That's one of the films that I love. And so you're working in that, that cadre with those people. And so, but you're amongst that class of filmmakers now. So how does that feel?
Well, if you say so.
Well, I do. I legitimately do.
Thank you. I mean, that's like it's I guess sort of interesting in a way that I didn't intend to make a film in that idiom. Like I really was following this character, Sam, and and then Amanda's character emerged in the writing process, and like, this is the world that I am in, like I live on the Upper West Side. I did babysit for very wealthy people in these neighborhoods, and
sure.
That's the milieu of this genre, like the New York kind of Jewish creative class, kvetchers.
Well, it's something that's highly specific, but in making something very specific, you've made something universal. Because I think if you would have set out to make something that you were starting from the other side and you were saying, I want to tell a story in the style of, it would have felt forced in that way. But you told a very personal story that was very specific about a region, an area, people that are involved in that area. And so a guy that's several thousand miles away in Southern Arizona could not possibly be further removed from your daily experience. But it's something that I feel mirrored in a lot of ways in this, because it's not my story in the specifics, but it's my story in the general telling of it. The emotionality of it, the emotional honesty of it is what I think people respond to. So
that definitely, well, it's first of all, just nice to hear. And I'm so happy that it connected on that level. And that was my impulse with the movie. Like it just was a instinct for me to try and be like honest in the storytelling. Not necessarily like, in terms of the facts of what happened in the plot, like much of that is constructed, but that the sort of feeling of the movie would, at least to me, feel real. That was really the thing I cared about the most.
Well, it's the the moment that on the couch, it's the moment, and we talked about this before, the moment where we see Amanda Peet through your eyes. It's the moment when there's the fight at the dinner table. Those feel very honest, very raw, very real. And even if it's not your exact experience, we've all had a Thanksgiving dinner that went sideways. We've all had something where something came to a head in a way that you really never intended for it. We've said things that we didn't mean and that may not have even been true. at times, but it was
Yeah.
something that just you wanted to lash out and you wanted to hurt somebody. And so I think that there is such raw honesty in this that, the plot, that's not truth. The truth has never been in plot, because you can tell something that is 100% point A to point B accurate. Yeah. But if you lose the emotion in it, the story's bullshit.
Yes, I completely agree, and I think that is a special feature of not a DVD special feature, but like a unique quality that movies can communicate. Like that very specific point of view of the director, that if it's honest, or at least this is how I take in movies, if you feel it's honest and you feel it's like recognizable, there is a kind of like, it's your movie, like you are that I. And I think that it is something you can sense when it's not there.
I think there's a good gut check you can have on yourself. If you feel comfortable showing the world the thing that you've made, there's probably a chance that it might be fine. It might be good. It might be really good, but there should almost be a sense of somebody's cracked open a Trapper Keeper from when you were 16 years old and they're reading the poetry that you wrote 25 years ago. Yes. It should have that feeling of vulnerability when you're showing the world your art.
Yes. I think that's something that is like, it's that cliche, like the camera doesn't lie. I think sure. Like, there is some truth to that in that, like, you can pick it up when someone's not like, or sort of hiding something,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's something where I feel like if you're being that vulnerable, it's scary, because then that rejection is a rejection of you as well as just the film that you've made, which that's a scary thing to do. So I love the film and I think that you've made something that's really special, but how does it feel to release that into the world, to really just put yourself out there like that?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's like a lot of my experiences, it has, sort of this like elated aspect and then a like very unhappy, depressed aspect, and like, there is this sort of like desire to be loved by everybody, it's like putting yourself out there. Like, I want to be liked by everyone. And that's just not how me, the artist, like, doesn't care about that, but like me, the social person in the world and, who wants to feel cool and, respected, like,
of course,
doesn't care. Yeah. So yeah, it's a complicated experience. I'm
well, we're not monoliths. So we have we have multiple facets to our personalities, and oftentimes those things are in opposition to one another.
Yeah.
Going back to when I was 16 years old and I had a green mohawk and I would get annoyed that people were looking at me. I'm doing something that will absolutely draw attention, but then being bothered by the fact that I'm right.
That
it's working, that the thing that I'm doing is working.
Totally.
So, and by nature, I'm an introvert, but then I'm doing this. So it's those things that they exist in opposition to one another. We are all multiple things. There's a part of us that is narcissistic as well as incredibly fragile. There's parts of us that are egomaniacs, but we also are very vulnerable and insecure. So it's like we're all those things. It's just how the EQs are turned up at different points in our lives, really.
Yeah, that's a good, nice analogy. Um, yeah, so I think the whole journey of making a film, I've learned, has that character of like it's just like a lot of different parts in, you know, especially coming out, like that there's the sort of filmmaking, full on experience, which is a completely different part than the let's get it into a film festival. Let's go to the film festival. Let's be on the road with the film. Who's going to buy it? It's like
Right.
that whole dance is like a completely different part of your brain, and it's hard to sort of like just completely leave that other thing behind.
Well, film festivals specifically are they almost need to come with a caveat. I think it should be where anytime a film is reviewed, it needs to be, if it's reviewed in a film festival, you should have to revisit it 6 months later to put, okay, I thought about it this way in this moment when I saw 7 films in one day and I had to turn this around and write these 4 articles today. And this is the one that everybody was talking about. Do I still feel this way? Have I revisited this? Have I thought about this film again in that amount of time? Because oftentimes it's the ones that maybe didn't bowl you over in the moment, but they kind of just plant themselves in the back of your mind. And 6 months later, you're going, I need to watch that one again. I keep thinking about it here and there. Things keep popping up. I keep referencing it amongst the people that were there. And it's going into the theaters now. I think I'm going to go see this again. It's coming out on VOD. I'm going to watch, and just, you start circling back, and it's not the obvious ones that ends up sticking with you. And your film, while it was received really warmly in the festival circuit, it's something that I could see not getting that sort of splashy response necessarily, because it is so small and it's so personal, that it's something but it's something when people see a film like this, that I think it will stick with you for a long time. This is just one of those rare movies that, again, I talking about the films that I show to my kids, I could 100% want to show this to my children, as well as show this to sit down with my wife. And I would want my mom to see this as well. Because I think good art you experience at different times in your life, and you do different things. And I could see in 20 years getting something different out of this film than I do today.
Well, that's one of the nicest responses I've gotten. So thank you. And I'll just quickly say, like, I'm guilty of that too, that process of like seeing something in the wrong context, having a prejudice against it, like this actor got a part that I didn't get or whatever, that kind of stuff. And then you sort of like, like a few years later, it's like not that raw anymore. So you see it and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And to have that awareness that like we are sometimes not our best selves, like taking things in, that's I think a pretty a kind of like humble, like humble thing to approach movies with. Like you're humbling yourself that maybe things are better than you think they are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the point of your movie, also, though. That these are two people that this was their moment for one another when they needed each other. This is not a thing that this is their thoughts forever on one another. This is a momentary thing. And we have to recognize that within ourselves also, that this is how I felt about something at a moment in time for a lot of circumstances that I'm conscious of, and things that I might not even be aware of till I look back at it years later. And so art is something that when we evaluate it, I think we need to be open to the idea that our impression is going to be wrong. My favorite albums are ones that I didn't get the first time around. They're usually albums that were by artists that I loved, and they did something wildly different. then it took me putting it on 3 or 4 or 5 times that I maybe even a year later when I picked it up again, it's like, oh, this is brilliant. The music didn't change. I just changed, and it was the right time to find that. And so films are the same way. It can be the right time to find a specific film.
And I think it makes me think about the theatrical experience versus, like picking something on even like the Criterion Channel or something, like, oh, I got a classy,
that gives it a weight on itself, though, by the fact that it's curated there.
It's like, I'm sure there are plenty of movies that I've started that I've just been like, I'm gonna, this isn't working for me. Like that, had I seen them in the movie theater, that's not really an option.
You're committed.
You're committed, and so it's a lot. It takes a lot for me. Not everyone's like this, but most people, I think it takes a lot to walk out of a movie.
I never have. I've
never walked out of a movie round.
Not one time.
I could count it on one hand, maybe even like 2-3 fingers. But
if I'm taking out, and based on the quality of the film, I've walked out of a theater because of other circumstances, being that I was young and I used to theater hop when I was a kid. And so I would watch 2 or 3 movies in a day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So it would be that thing. So there was timing where I was like, oh, this is interesting. I got 10 minutes of this.
You're like, I could see this. And yeah.
And so you're like, okay, I'm going to go watch 15 minutes of Jade in between this. I have no interest in seeing this movie, but
just a little palate cleanser.
Exactly. Just to hang out for a few minutes. And so the context is important. And I think in criticism, we don't often see that context. And in our own experiences, we tend to remove that context as well. And the more context you give, not only to the review you're writing or to your opinion when you're sharing it with people, the better, because it's just opening yourself up and being honest in that way. So,
totally.
But man, I know we're over time at this point, but thank you again for doing this.
My pleasure. It's great to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope we can do this again on the next one. And I really did love the film. So you got something special here, man. So
thank you so much. It really is nice to hear that. And I can tell we're like on the same page about a lot of stuff.
I have a feeling. We're pretty well aligned on a lot of this stuff. And
time enough to figure you out. Time enough to write this down. Wish me luck, give me hope. So I wisecrack.